Hello again, welcome back everyone. LiquorHound here with you, and thank you for joining me once again for another spirit review video. So recently I was at an event, big whiskey event, and I run into Barrell Craft Spirits representative. Okay. Said they really liked the review I did on the Barrell 33. I think I reviewed that several weeks back. And so I was like, yeah, well, thank you, thank you. And then he said, I'd like to send you some samples just to get your opinion on. I was like, okay. And I said, I don't do any type of sponsorships or anything like that. He said, no, just want to send you some samples. You can review them if you want. If not, don't worry about it. I was like, okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to review them, but I'm going to review them blind. And so that's what we have here. He sent me 3 samples, and I have my glasses. I haven't done any research on these. I'm going to tell you basically what the label tells me. And beyond that, we're just going to taste them blind and see what we think about them. Now, I do have batch 34 that I picked up. I did like batch 33. I figured let's check and see what batch 34 is doing. It's about $90, $89.99, somewhere in there. I figured it was worth the shot, so that's what I'm really technically reviewing is this bottle. And then just for grins, we're going to see what the others are doing. Okay, but I'm going to have to have my glasses on because I cannot read up close. You don't ever have to worry about me reading notes. Can't do it. But let me go ahead and talk about, I guess, batch 34 here. It's a 6-year-old age statement, 114.62 proof, distilled in Kentucky, Indiana, and Tennessee. Okay, pretty much like batch 33 was. And then we have these sample bottles. Now, the first one we're going to do is, it says Barrell Bourbon Private Release GXA1 is the blend. 75% 5-year, 15% 7-year, 5% 9-year, and 5% 14-year at 119.94 proof. So just about 120. So again, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana is where that's from. Okay, so that's going to be the second thing we taste. And then we have a private release. It says a whiskey finished in ruby port barrels. And this is Barrell Whiskey, right? The first one was Barrell Bourbon, just like this batch 34 is a bourbon. But now we're into the whiskey category, so that could be combination of new and reused casks. But it says ruby port barrel, and the blend is DJX, as an X-ray, 2. It is 123.9 proof. It says it's distilled in Kentucky and Indiana only. Let's see. And finally, another Barrell Whiskey, private release, St. Agrestis Brooklyn Amaro cask. Blend number DJA2, 123.2 proof, Kentucky and Indiana. Amaro cask, like in a herbal liqueur. So we should see what that is going to be. But we're going to start with the Barrell 34. Again, I thought 33 was really well done. $90, didn't have a problem with that price point. This 34, let's see. And to be honest, I'm tasting this blind too because I just picked it up. So here we go. On the nose. All right. Okay, it's opening up. It's got a lot of brown sugar caramel. Good blend of the two. So it's kind of a youthful old characteristic there. Good cherry aspect. It's not super bright like a maraschino would be, but it's not like a brandy cherry either. It's kind of right in the middle, just like a really ripe, fresh cherry. Some red apple in here. Some plumminess as well, ripe plum. Good oak. Cinnamon, baking cinnamon. Cinnamon is a little bit up on the nose. What I mean by that is sometimes the cinnamon's just elevated just a little bit. Could be just that I just opened this bottle. Good leather in here. A little bit of a newer leather. A little citrus, little orange oil on it. That's an old bourbon characteristic. There's a little hint of like a little straw. and a little apple cider vinegar. Okay, let's go to the taste. Again, should have kept them on. Glasses, I think we're at 114.62 on the proof. All right, here we go. Kind of running across my tongue. It's good. That's another good blend by them. Wow. Ooh, man, is it better than 33? I might, I don't know. I'm gonna say I'm gonna review that again. It is close to 33. I think the cinnamon, again, is just a little elevated than I remember the 33 being, but there's a lot of really good things going on in this one. Let me see. Let's start from the beginning. Good medium high viscosity. It's very creamy on the palate. Enters brown sugar caramel, a little bit of a nuttiness, roasted nuts underneath there, mixed. Whoa. Wow. You get that good blend of fruit, and it's not like they come in one at a time. They kind of come in all together, a little baked, and it is kind of like baked cherries, baked apples, plums in there. And then that mid palate hits, and you get kind of that baking spice, that little cinnamon. On the nose, it felt like it was elevated, like out of proportion. On the flavor profile, it's warming, but it's not out of balance. Big leather. If you like leathery bourbons, it's a lot of leather on this. Even though they were only doing, I think, like 5% on those 9, and I want to say it was like 14 year. Can't remember. Oh, maybe that was the other one. I guess I don't know the details. I'll put it in the description. Maybe I'll put it right here on the video. I'll try to put the details because, again, I'm doing this kind of blind. Sometimes I like doing things like this because my mind doesn't get clouded with all the little details and, oh, I know there's a certain amount in that. Doesn't matter. I've always been about just kind of giving you the notes and letting you decide. That's why I don't do scores. Just let you decide if this sounds like something you'd like to pick up. Yeah, very creamy bourbon. You got mixed nuts, that brown sugar caramel, orange oil, citrus kind of rush ups a little early. Baking spices, mid palate, gets leathery, heavy leather, and nice oak on the back end. Everybody's still running. You get that kind of baked cherry plum, baked apple. Good vanilla as well, vanilla bean in there. That's a very enjoyable bottle. Sometimes I always worry, I worry when people do blends with Tennessee whiskey how quickly Dickel can get out of hand. And I guess they're cognizant of that because they don't let it. So it's like the only thing I could see that the Dickel is adding in this blend, it could be the oak, because sometimes if they use old Dickel, like if it's that, 17, 15, somewhere in there, that Dickel has really nice polish and oak characteristic, and sometimes lends to a sour fruit element that is very, very nice. And so in a blend, I think they're doing a great job there. You can pick up that mixed nut and that caramel that hits early, that little bright, not super bright, but that fresh cherry aspect. That's a younger bourbon characteristic. And there's a lot of younger in there, but they balanced it out really well with the mature bourbons. Yeah, well done. $90. If you like batch 33, you're going to love batch 34. Okay. Here we go. Let's see what we're dealing with. GXA1 Barrell Bourbon Private Release. This is that one. The 75% 5-year, 15% 7-year, 5% 9-year, and 5% 14-year at 119.94 proof, which might as well be 120. All right, here we go. I tell you what, there is a tobacco element with that leather on that batch 34 that lingers. I've rinsed already, and I'm talking, and I was getting ready to go into this one, and I'm like, That is still on the palate. Hopefully with air, if that tobacco starts coming out like that, it's going to be, I might have to go get another bottle or two. All right, here we go. All right. It feels, I was going to say, yeah, the immediate thought when I was noticing this feels younger, and it does have a lot of that 5-year-old. But even if you didn't know that, I mean, don't get me wrong, it noses just fine. Like, this is a really nice crafted bourbon. It doesn't have that, I think this probably has older bourbon in it a little bit, but this is their private release. I don't think they say that. They don't say that on these. No, that's just regular barrel bourbon. All right, here we go. Let's do it. It's on the nose. It's brown sugar, heavy, not as much caramel as I'd expect for a 5-year-old. Typically, those kick a lot of caramel, but it does have that little apple cider vinegar tone to it. A little bit of nuttiness. Baking spices are there. A little bit of mostly cinnamon, touch of clove, a little anise. The plums are there. More like plum skins on this one. Red apples again baked down for this one. Reset the nose here so I can get back in this glass properly. It almost has, yeah, it's almost like it's the baked apple. That's what it is. It's just baked apple. It's almost going like the cereal tone. Almost like Apple Jacks, but it's just that dried baked apple. All right. Let's taste it. Oh, 120 proof is delicious. It's really good. It's crazy. Again, they're doing really good on the blends because the nose, typically the nose, when I taste spirits, the nose will match the profile. Here, it was hiding that caramel on the nose. On the nose, I was getting a lot of brown sugar. I think what it is just really tight right now. I just freshly opened this. Yeah, I think it was just a little tight on the nose. But when I taste it, very viscous, medium, almost medium high viscosity. There is that little hay aspect to a younger, I would call it younger MGP personally, that there is a young MGP in there. But you get this really kind of like big brown sugar caramel heavy as well, rushing up front. A little bit of that baked dried apple characteristic following right behind that. Get the baking spices, a little bit of that straw, fresh straw, harvested straw in there. Leather and oak laying out really nice on the back end. Doesn't really drink the proof at almost 120. No, it's very sweet. Drinks about, if you didn't know better, you'd say it's 112, 113. There is what is that? It's in with the straw. Am I going to call it that? It's almost like an dried herbal, almost like a sage aspect to this one that I didn't find in here. It doesn't go heavy into the tobacco. It stays more on the leather aspect for this one. The citrus that's in here, it's almost like a combination of orange with a touch of lime oil, lime zest, we'll call it that. It's just a touch brighter than 34, but very, very, I think it's sweeter and more oily than 34. All right, next up, we're switching from bourbon into whiskey. which bourbon is a whiskey, but not all whiskeys are bourbon. All right, this is the Ruby Port Barrel. DJX2 blend at 123.9, so pretty much 124 proof. Ruby Port. Typically Ruby Ports, a lot of fruit flashing off of it. Hopefully not too winey. I sometimes worry a little bit when they go to that. It really can throw off a bourbon, but here we go. Boom. Boom. Yeah, it's in there. And the proof is showing here. It does nose over 120. I'm trying to pick that fruit, not the fruit, the sugar component is brown sugar, but that ruby port is adding a lot of sweetness as well. It's got that caramel. I would almost call this one like a caramel apple with also a little bit of that candied apple, that red glazed candied apple. Some plum, a touch of fig, a touch of chocolate, like a dark chocolate. Dried strawberries? I'm curious if that's going to show up on the palate. And some leather. Good heavy leather, a little bit of that polished vinegar tone to it. Again, 120, almost 124, I believe. Wow. Yeah. 120, 124. Yeah, it's definitely viscous. Definitely over medium high. Lots of vanilla, lots of caramel. Now heading into butterscotch. A lot of times American whiskeys, when you can go into reuse cask or use different mash bills, not necessarily all bourbon, you can go into corn whiskey and stuff like that. When you start aging that up, you'll get into butterscotch, and this is definitely headed in that direction. Which in my mind takes me to some really good rums. When they start getting like Foursquare, Barbados rums, they start getting that butterscotch heavy. This is reminiscent of that. But overall, as far as the brown sugar, hint of molasses, good viscosity, medium high. It's got that butterscotch tone. A little bit of that, yeah, kind of candied apple is in there. This one starts feeling a little bit like it's a little leaning more on the apple aspect than the cherry, although there is some brandied cherry to this. A lot happens up front. On the back end, it just kind of turns really nice and easy. It's not super oaky. I mean, there's definitely good barrel, but it's not super oaky. You pick up a little bit of that ethanol on the back end, but it's okay. I think that's going to air out again. I'm just opening them and tasting them with you right here. Oh, greatness up front. Grape, yeah. There is that plum skin, that plumminess that I was picking up, almost comes off like a what's that called? Pomace. So when you're doing brandies made from the stems and the skins, fresh grappa, not always the best, right? But when you start to barrel age grappa, you'll start to pick up a little bit of like a mintiness. You'll start to pick up like sometimes white chocolate, and it'll lead into eucalyptus. This has kind of that grape skin feel of like a aged grappa. And then you got that rumminess too. So it's a odd, I don't call it odd. It's a unique profile that just doesn't lend itself to just bourbon, because this isn't just bourbon. I think it's heavy on the corn whiskey, and the corn whiskey is aged up, so it's got a lot of characteristics that will remind you of other things. Canadian clubs. When you get those 40-year, 43-year, now 45 year. Hopefully I can get some of that to review, but we'll see if I can shell it out because I think that's upwards of 500 now. But it has a lot of that really old corn whiskey character. And of course, in a whiskey category, you're playing with all these mash bills. You can pull all these crazy flavors, and it's done a great job there. That is Ruby Port Barrel DJX2. That Ruby Port is blended in super nicely. It's not jumping out like, you know, when you think of it's a port cast finish, it's going to have all this fig and it's going to have all this cherry and plum. The fruit have remained very nice and light. Hasn't started dominating the sugar component. The sugar component's actually the star of that show. So that's showing some maturity. And really well blended. Oof. All right. Last but not least, yeah, the Brooklyn Amaro cask DJA2 at 123.2. So another one that's almost 124 proof. I am curious about this. This could go really well or really wrong. But I'm pretty sure they wouldn't release it if it was really wrong. All right, one more double rinse. Put on a Brooklyn Amaro. Oh. Oh my goodness. All right. Good job. The star here is going to be the anise, the clove. All those herbs, because that's an herbal liqueur, right? You're getting that in here. It's almost like a little, I mean, Worcestershire sauce. This is unique. This is going to take a moment. Here, let's see. There's a lot of root herbs in here as well. Almost like a gin where they start getting into that orris root, angelica root. Ugh. A little cardamom. But again, this is a whiskey, so not just bourbon. It kind of reminds me of some of the experimental Copper and Kings brandy out of Kentucky. They'll do some unique casks like this and capture a lot of this characteristic. All right, here we go. Oh, super unique. It's almost like it's almost mulling spices. When you start getting all that clove and anise or anise, however you like to say it, when you get those together and you get that dried orange peel, and then it's almost like you took this and put that with mulling spices, because now you're getting all that unique characteristics of that licorice and that orange, again, dried oranges, dried orange peels aspect, the heavy clove. It's like a clove bomb in this one. Still really butterscotchy though. That's nice. That's really nice. Super unique, but well crafted again. Okay. I mean, just running through that lineup and now looking back at it, I love this one. I think they did a great job on it. I really love this one. This one, I like it. But the price point on these, I want to say, is like 110 to 120. Whereas this was 90. I think this is an instant pickup, no problem. This one I'd pick up because I want to share this with some friends and be like, you can't do this before you get, like when you're doing a bourbon lineup and sharing with friends, you can't throw that in the middle. It's going to mess everything behind it up. This needs to go at the very end You know, you've done the high proof bourbons and all that that are not finished, then taste that. It lingers on the palate, much like this one did with the tobacco and leather. This one lingers with all those spice components and herbal root type things. Good oak too. I mean, it's a great whiskey. And the ruby port, I love the delicate fruit. I loved how it wasn't overpowering. This one has me super curious about where does this stack up between these three. It's leaning on, oh my goodness. There's almost like a that peanut mixed nut component is still there, but there's almost like the pear on this one almost feels like pear liqueur now when I go back to it. I do like that, but overall it is young. It is leaning on the apple. So for me, ranking wise, I would definitely pick this up. I'm definitely picking this up. Then I'd probably go into the ruby port and finish up on the private reserve barrel there. If you enjoyed this kind of content, you want to get it ad-free and 2 weeks early, patreon.com/LiquorHound. But if you're just watching this on YouTube, I greatly appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for leaving those great comments. I'll get back to them just as soon as I can. Everyone, have a great day, and cheers.